Everything changed the day I died. I had spent 999 years cultivating, enduring countless trials, all for one goal, to ascend and become a legendary dragon. I was only 1 year away. Then a human took everything from me. Even after landing the killing blow, that madman just stood there, laughing like a lunatic. It echoed across the battlefield as rain poured from the sky. For a moment, I wondered if he was even human. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered as my strength faded. 999 years, all wasted. Humans had come prepared. They brought special talismans created for one purpose alone, to kill divine beasts like me. There was never going to be a fair fight. I glared at the warrior and roared, "Why? What could you possibly gain from this?" Covered in blood and barely able to stand, he looked down at me with exhausted eyes. "I don't care about rewards," he said. "I'm only repaying a debt to the one who saved me." So that was it. My entire life ended because of someone else's promise. As the darkness swallowed me, I accepted that everything was finally over. Or so I thought. A mysterious voice suddenly echoed through the void. "What is your name?" I tried to look around. "Who's there?" No one answered. Had I really died? Was this what awaited me after death? Then. Thump. A heartbeat. Another one. I froze. Wait. Was I alive? I could feel blood flowing through my body again. My dantian was completely empty, but there was still life inside me. Confused, I reached forward, only for my hand to collide with some invisible wall. So this is a prison. Did they really think sealing my cultivation would stop me? With every ounce of strength I had left, I slammed into the barrier again and again. Crack! It finally shattered. I stumbled out, completely exhausted, barely able to move. Looking around, I couldn't believe my eyes. The entire place was overflowing with priceless treasures, rare spiritual herbs, and artifacts that kingdoms would go to war over. Who in the world could possess wealth like this? Then I noticed something different. A lonely stone tablet stood among all the treasures. As I stepped closer, I read the inscription. It was a grave. Not for a great warrior. Not for a king. But for a baby who had never even been born. The words wished peace upon the child's soul, saying they had departed before ever seeing the light of the world. For some reason, my heart felt heavy. Was this entire place built for that child? Without thinking, I decided the least I could do was offer a small prayer. But the moment I touched my face, I froze. Why is my face so soft? I looked down. Tiny paws. Short little legs. A round, fluffy body. No. 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 I slapped my own cheeks, hoping this was some kind of illusion. It wasn't. I had become an absurdly tiny, chubby creature. There was no trace of my majestic dragon body. This can't be happening. The mighty divine beast who once shook the heavens had been reincarnated as this pathetic little furball. After several moments of panicking, I finally let out a long sigh. So, this is what humans call reincarnation. I still didn't understand the rules of this new life. Complaining wouldn't change anything. If I wanted answers, I'd have to survive first. With my new tiny body, I turned toward the mountain of treasures around me. If I was starting over from nothing, I might as well see if there was anything here that could help me. Now that I'd accepted my ridiculous new body, there was only one thing left to do. Search for anything useful. The first thing I found was a sacred sword, followed by countless magical treasures. Whoever owned this place clearly had some interesting tastes. Then I spotted a cursed shield. Anyone who looks at it turns to stone. I sighed. How unoriginal. Next came another cursed artifact that condemned its victim to eternal hunger. I've heard that one before. Then I found a potion that would steal your voice in exchange for giving you legs. That's barely even a curse. The more I searched, the stranger it became. Why was a place filled with light and priceless treasures overflowing with cursed objects? Were they using opposing energies to hide this place? Just as I was thinking that, something caught my eye. A tiny gemstone had rolled onto the floor. It looked insignificant. But the moment I sensed the energy inside it, I froze. That aura. It felt familiar. Almost identical to the power I possessed in my previous life. I slowly looked up. The gemstone hadn't appeared out of nowhere. It had fallen from the top of an enormous mountain of treasure. My eyes widened. Gold. Spirit stones. Ancient artifacts. Rare relics. There was an entire mountain of priceless treasure stacked high above me. I've hit the jackpot. But I didn't care about the gold. That little gemstone. It wasn't an ordinary jewel. It was a spiritual weapon. And I could feel the darkness sealed inside it. I have to get that. There was just one problem. The gemstone was firmly attached to an elaborate golden ornament. Seriously. I grabbed it with both of my tiny paws and pulled as hard as I could. Nothing. I dug my little feet into the pile of treasure and pulled again. Still nothing. This ridiculous body. Refusing to give up, I poured every bit of strength I had into one final tug. Come on. Snap. The gemstone suddenly broke free. The force sent me flying backward. Even as I tumbled through the air, I refused to let go of my prize. I rolled head over heels all the way down the mountain of gold before crashing onto the floor. Ow. Back when I was a divine beast, a fall like that wouldn't have even registered. Now it hurt enough to make me question my entire existence. Still. I smiled as I looked at the gemstone safely clutched in my paws. Worth it. Then. Boom. A deafening roar of thunder shook the entire hall. The air itself became unbearably heavy. A terrifying pressure crashed down on me from every direction. What is this? Space in front of me began to twist and distort. Something. No. Someone was coming. The overwhelming presence made every instinct inside me scream. Even in my previous life. When I was at my strongest. I don't think I could have defeated whatever was on the other side. I swallowed hard. But I'm a descendant of the legendary Black Dragon. I couldn't run. I wouldn't. A massive blue portal slowly tore open in the center of the treasure hall. The first thing to emerge was an enormous golden claw. Then. A gigantic glowing blue eye locked onto me. My entire body froze. Stepping through the dimensional rift came a colossal golden dragon, radiating overwhelming majesty and power. And it was staring directly at me. The moment the giant dragon appeared, I understood exactly what it was doing. She was trying to crush me with nothing but her aura. Even with this tiny body, my pride wouldn't allow me to bow. I'm a descendant of the legendary Black Dragon. There was no way I was lowering my head. I took a deep breath and unleashed the most fearsome roar I could muster. Squeak. That wasn't a roar. That was a squeak. The colossal dragon simply stared at me in complete silence. Before I could recover from the humiliation. Ah. Achoo. I sneezed. Not just any sneeze. An embarrassingly adorable one. Kill me now. The giant dragon blinked in surprise before letting out a soft laugh. So you're just a newborn hatchling. What? Newborn. She slowly approached, and despite her overwhelming size, there wasn't a trace of hostility in her movements. You don't have to be afraid, she said gently. Afraid? I wasn't afraid. I was. Being cautious. Definitely cautious. As if sensing my unease, the golden dragon suddenly began to glow. In an instant, her massive body disappeared. Standing before me now was a beautiful blonde woman wearing a warm smile. Is this form less frightening? She asked. Then she smiled and introduced herself. My name is Christina. I blinked. She told me her name. That wasn't something powerful beings usually did. Christina knelt beside me and looked me over with genuine concern. Are you all right? And, have you eaten yet? Eat. I almost laughed. In my previous life, I could go an entire month without needing a single meal. This body shouldn't. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr Not now. Christina looked down at me in surprise. My face burned with embarrassment. What is wrong with this useless body? As if mocking me, my stomach growled again. Even louder this time. There was no denying it anymore. I was starving. Christina smiled knowingly. I'll prepare something for you. She reached beneath a nearby table and picked up a mysterious bottle. Curious, I watched every movement. She uncorked it and slowly poured a creamy white liquid into a small container. The sweet aroma drifted through the air. My nose twitched. Milk. Fresh milk. Before I even realized what I was doing, the precious gemstone slipped right out of my paws. All I could think about was the delicious smell. I swallowed hard as my mouth began to water. Forget legendary treasures. Forget spiritual weapons. Right now, that milk looked like the greatest treasure in the world. Christina noticed the way I was staring at it and smiled mischievously. She hesitated for a moment. Should I let you drink by yourself? As I eagerly leaned forward. She slowly started pulling the bottle away. Wait. Don't you dare. When Christina started pulling the bottle away, my heart nearly stopped. Wait. She thinks I don't want it. No. Without thinking, I launched myself toward the bottle as fast as my tiny legs could carry me. Squeak. I wrapped my little paws around it before she could take it away and immediately started drinking. Christina couldn't help but smile. My, you really were hungry. I ignored her and kept drinking as fast as I could. It's just milk, I told myself. Nothing special. Then the flavor hit me. What is this? This wasn't ordinary milk. It was unbelievably rich, sweet, and overflowing with spiritual energy. It was, without question, the best thing I had ever tasted. Christina giggled. Do you like it? The cheerful little sounds that came out of my mouth made me freeze. Did I just answer like that? I looked away, pretending nothing had happened while she laughed softly. After I finished drinking, Christina gently reached out her hand toward me. Would you like to come with me? Her smile was warm. The world outside is full of delicious food, and so many wonderful things for you to discover. I didn't understand every word she said. But I understood enough. She was asking me to go with her. I thought about it carefully. She hadn't shown even the slightest hint of malice. There was nothing else keeping me in this treasure haul. And with this ridiculously weak body, trying to survive alone would be suicide. Of course. I'm not accepting because the milk was incredible. Absolutely not. After making my decision, I quietly walked over to her. Then I gently grabbed the edge of her white dress with my tiny paw. Christina's face lit up. So you'll come with me? She carefully lifted me into her arms. The warmth of her embrace caught me completely off guard. She held me tightly, her voice trembling ever so slightly. I was so afraid that you would never be born. Thank you. Thank you for being alive. I stared at her in silence. She was thanking me. Simply for existing. It felt strange. In my previous life, strength was all that mattered. No one had ever welcomed me like this. But somehow, it didn't feel bad. I couldn't help but wonder if the soul that originally belonged to this body had disappeared before ever being born. Looking at Christina's smile, I reached into my little paws and offered her the magical gemstone I'd found. She blinked in surprise. For me? Or, do you want me to keep it safe? Instead of answering, I rubbed my face gently against her. After everything she'd done for me, I didn't want to see her sad. Christina's eyes sparkled. Oh. Are you trying to comfort me? You're far too adorable. She hugged me even tighter. Together, we left the treasure hall behind. As she carried me toward the outside world, she softly whispered, "Let's take good care of each other." I didn't say a word. But in my heart, I was grateful. She had given me a second chance at life. Before leaving completely, I glanced back one last time at the lonely grave. I silently prayed that the child who had never been born would finally find peace. Then I made a promise to myself. This time, I will become stronger than ever before. No one will take everything from me again. No one will ever defeat me again. Whatever it takes. I'll use every resource this new life has to offer. Some time later, after everything that had happened, I found myself sleeping peacefully on my back, surrounded by impossibly soft blankets and mountains of glittering treasure. For the first time in a very long time, I truly felt safe. He begins to open his eyes slowly. Waking up, I slowly opened my eyes. Another peaceful morning. I let out a long, lazy yawn before stretching across the pile of soft cushions that had somehow become my favorite sleeping spot. Before I knew it, an entire month had passed since I arrived at the temple, which meant it was time for my morning cultivation. At first, living in this tiny newborn body had been incredibly frustrating. I could barely walk without wobbling. Everything was weak. Everything was small. But little by little, I got used to it. And I discovered something fascinating. Unlike my previous life, this body naturally gathered magical energy inside my heart without me needing to use any breathing techniques.
At first, I thought something had gone horribly wrong. But after watching Christina use magic, I realized that's simply how this world worked. That discovery saved me an incredible amount of time. Since my middle dantian was developing on its own, I could devote all of my attention to strengthening my lower dantian instead. Even better, this temple was overflowing with the purest magical energy I'd ever experienced. Combined with the fact that my newborn body was completely free of impurities, it was practically the perfect place to cultivate. Everything was going perfectly. Well, almost everything. There was one enormous problem. A tiny glowing nuisance. The little spirit assigned to watch me floated nearby as always. Don't you ever sleep? I pushed it away with my paw. It immediately floated right back. Seriously? Christina had summoned the little watcher because she worried about leaving me alone. Unfortunately, it took its job far too seriously. Every time I tried sneaking out to explore the temple, the little traitor would rush off to tell Christina. Moments later she'd come running back, gently reminding me that the outside world was dangerous. There was absolutely no escaping its watchful eyes. Because of that glowing pest, I couldn't even practice my more demanding techniques in secret. Still, at least my cultivation continued to improve steadily. After a month of training, I could finally feel enough mana flowing through my body to attempt something I'd been planning for quite some time. Teleportation. I gathered every bit of magical energy I had and focused it into the center of the hall. Not to escape. Not yet. As long as that little spy was around, running away would be impossible. No. First I needed a way to deal with the Watcher. Then there was another problem. I looked at my tiny mouth and sighed. Even if I mastered powerful spells, actually pronouncing them was another story. I'd have to wait until I grew older before that limitation disappeared. While I was thinking, the glowing spirit began copying every movement I made. I glared at it. Stop that. The little pest copied me again. You're doing it on purpose. Before I could continue arguing with a floating ball of light, I sensed a familiar wave of mana. Christina. She had returned. The doors opened, and she smiled the moment she saw me. Did you behave while I was gone? The instant I heard her voice, I sprinted toward her as fast as my tiny legs could carry me. Finally. Food. Christina's face immediately softened. Ah, did you miss me that much? Don't misunderstand. I'm here for the milk. Only the milk. Nothing else. Smiling warmly, Christina considered today's menu. Maybe it's time you tried a little meat. She gently opened my mouth to check. Then she paused. Oh. You don't even have teeth yet. So. Milk it is. When Christina realized I didn't have any teeth yet, I simply waved my tiny paws to let her know I was perfectly happy with milk. She blinked in surprise. You really understood me? Then she smiled brightly. You're the smartest little hatchling I've ever seen. Of course I am. I lived for over 1,000 years before being reincarnated. Compared to an actual baby, this isn't exactly a fair competition. Still, I had to admit my innocent hatchling act was working perfectly. Before I could ask for my milk, Christina scooped me into her arms. "Oh, did you want a hug?" "No. I wanted the bottle." I waved my paws, trying my best to explain. "The milk." She misunderstood every single gesture. "You just wanted affection." Well, I suppose keeping my benefactor happy isn't the worst strategy. I quietly accepted the cuddling. Christina looked into my eyes with an expression overflowing with warmth. She gently squeezed my fluffy little body against her chest. "You are, without question, the cutest hatchling in the entire world." A moment later, her eyes suddenly widened. "Oh no. I completely forgot why I came here." Finally. She handed me the bottle with a cheerful smile. "Here's your favorite milk." The moment it touched my paws, I forgot about everything else. Now this. This was happiness. As I happily drank, one thought echoed through my mind. If acting adorable earns me milk this incredible, then maybe preserving my dignity can wait. While I quietly enjoyed my meal, Christina sat beside me on the floor like she always did. Then she began talking about her day. Normally, I never cared about listening to other people's problems. But Christina had no idea I understood every word she said. She spoke freely, laughing about little things, complaining about others, and sharing whatever was on her mind. As the days passed, I noticed something. Every time she finished talking, her smile became a little brighter. Her shoulders relaxed. It was as if simply having someone to listen made her feel lighter. Without realizing it, I'd also learned this world's language perfectly. And thanks to Christina's endless stories, I'd gathered an incredible amount of information about the world outside. She smiled at me and gently rubbed my head. "My precious baby." Then she looked at me with pleading eyes. "Could you do something cute for me?" There it is. Nothing in life is free. I stared at her in disbelief. I had once been a majestic divine beast who ruled the skies for 1,000 years. And now, I was performing tricks in exchange for milk. What a spectacular fall from grace. Even so, she had rescued me, fed me, protected me. The least I could do was return her kindness. With a defeated sigh, I struck the most adorable pose my tiny body could manage. Christina froze. Then she completely melted. "Oh my goodness. You're too cute." Mission accomplished. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. At least my benefactor was happy. A moment later, I flopped dramatically onto the floor. Honestly, I couldn't believe this was my life now. But no matter how much my pride suffered, I could never bring myself to be rude to the woman who had saved me and cared for me with such genuine kindness. Christina gently patted my head. "I hope you grow up happy. And I hope you have the most wonderful life." Every time she spoke to me like that, there wasn't a single lie in her voice. Day after day, she proved through her actions that she was genuinely kind. Not because she expected something in return. Simply because that was who she was. It left me confused. In my previous life, no one had ever shown me this much affection. Which made me wonder. How was I supposed to repay feelings like these? As I thought about it, an old memory surfaced. A fox. An old friend from my previous life. She used to tease me constantly. "Why do you always live alone?" she'd ask. "All you ever think about is becoming a celestial dragon. Are you actually happy living like that?" I never answered. She'd simply shake her head and laugh. "You're such an idiot." "Our paths are different," I always replied. "And that's exactly why you're an idiot." She'd grin before asking a question I could never answer. "Have you ever been truly happy? Have you ever experienced what it's like to be loved, or adored by someone?" I dismissed it without hesitation. Those things are meaningless to someone destined to become a celestial dragon. She only sighed. You're hopeless. I pointed out that she, too, would soon become a celestial fox. So why are you still clinging to worldly emotions? Her answer completely caught me off guard. I don't want to become a celestial fox. I want to become human. I stared at her. Why? Her cheeks turned bright red. Because I fell in love. He knows I'm a fox. And he loves me anyway. So if someone loves me that much, isn't it only natural that I want to return those feelings? Then she smiled at me. I hope one day, you experience that feeling too. She laughed and poked my shoulder. Though knowing you, you probably wouldn't even notice if someone special appeared right in front of you. That'll never happen, I answered immediately. I warned her that if she became human, she wouldn't be able to visit me anymore. The truth was, I simply didn't want anything to ruin her happiness. Looking back now, I realize I cared about her far more than I ever admitted. The last time we met, she looked at me with tear-filled eyes. I never understood why. You should have stayed cold like always, she muttered. What are you talking about? Just say what you mean. Instead, she gave me a small shove. I hope you have a happy life, you stubborn dragon. Then she ran away. Slowpoke. Lesser dragon. I stood there completely confused. I'd only been trying to be nice. But just before she disappeared over the horizon, she looked back one last time. She smiled. A beautiful, sincere smile. Thank you. At the time, I never understood what she meant. But now, I finally do. Returning someone's kindness isn't about repaying a debt. It's about cherishing the person who gave it to you. Maybe that's what she had been trying to teach me all along. Just then, I sensed Christina's familiar manna approaching. The doors to the temple slowly opened. My precious baby, she called with her usual gentle smile. Were you waiting patiently for me? But the moment she stepped inside, she froze. Her eyes widened in complete shock as she stared at the scene waiting for her. I had spent the past month training in secret. So today, I decided to show Christina my progress. Standing upright on my two hind legs, I puffed out my chest proudly. There. Surely she'd realize how quickly I was growing. And maybe, just maybe, she'd decide I no longer needed that annoying little watcher spirit following me everywhere. I waited confidently for her reaction. Instead, sniff. Huh. Christina's eyes suddenly filled with tears. What? Before I could process what was happening, she rushed toward me. The next thing I knew, I was wrapped in the tightest hug imaginable. She squeezed me against her chest with all her strength. I don't know what to do. You're just too adorable. So those were happy tears. Not sad ones. I had completely misunderstood. After finally loosening her death grip, Christina suddenly gasped. Oh. I almost forgot. I brought you a special present. A present? My ears immediately perked up. Please let it be food. Smiling warmly, Christina nodded. It's something you can eat easily. Even without any teeth. Now she had my full attention. Reaching into her travel bag, she carefully pulled out a gigantic white egg. I blinked. These are incredibly rare, she said proudly. They're phoenix eggs. I managed to get a few just for you. The massive egg radiated a warm crimson glow. I could clearly sense an enormous amount of fire mana sealed inside. A phoenix. An immortal bird reborn from its own ashes. It reminded me of a legendary creature from my previous world. Though the phoenix I knew certainly didn't hatch from eggs like these. Well, that wasn't important right now. Food came first. Without waiting another second, I dove headfirst into Christina's bag. She laughed as only my tiny legs stuck out. There you are. After a brief struggle, I finally dragged one of the enormous eggs out with both paws. It was almost bigger than I was. Holding it tightly, I squeezed with all my strength. Come on. Crack already. Crack. The shell finally split open. Victory. Without the slightest hesitation, I buried my face inside and devoured the glowing golden yolk. The instant it touched my tongue, my eyes lit up. This was incredible. The rich flavor exploded in my mouth, unlike anything I'd ever tasted. I couldn't stop eating. Christina watched with a gentle smile. I'm so glad you like it. It was specially prepared using the flames of a red dragon. That explained it. As I happily licked the last bit of yolk from my lips, I noticed something else. The egg wasn't just delicious. It also contained a surprisingly pure amount of fire mana. So it was nourishing my cultivation while I ate. What an amazing meal. Seeing how fast I was devouring everything, Christina chuckled and handed me my bottle of milk. Here. Drink this too. And try not to eat so quickly, okay? No promises. I listened as my protector explained that even though dragon hatchlings like me had surprisingly sturdy stomachs, it was still important to be careful so I wouldn't end up with indigestion. I happily kept devouring the warm, soft food, and every bite slid down my throat so smoothly that I barely had to chew. It was unbelievably delicious. Completely thrilled by the feast, I stretched out my chubby little paw and reached for another phoenix egg from the bag. But the moment I touched it, something felt strange. Huh. This one was different. Its shell was much redder than the others, and when I tapped it lightly, it felt incredibly hard and rigid. I frowned in confusion. Since there were still plenty of normal eggs with soft, easy-to-break shells, I decided to leave that odd one alone for now. Maybe I'd figure out how to eat it later. So I continued stuffing myself without a care in the world. Before I knew it, I had eaten far more than I should have. I flopped onto my back with a tiny thud, my round little belly stretched so full that it felt heavy enough to keep me pinned to the cushions. I couldn't move another inch even if I wanted to. Christina couldn't help smiling at the sight of me. She gently rubbed my swollen tummy while laughing softly, probably thinking she'd have to bring even more food next time. Then she lovingly patted the top of my head. Rest here while I go get more supplies, she told me. I let out a sleepy little yawn. I honestly couldn't believe I'd eaten that much. My stomach was packed, and I knew it'd take a while to digest everything. The food coma hit me almost immediately. My eyelids grew heavier with every passing second until I couldn't keep them open anymore. Surrounded by my warm, comfortable cushions, I gave in to the overwhelming drowsiness and drifted into a deep, peaceful sleep. Some time later, my ears twitched. A faint sound reached me from somewhere near my basket. Slowly, I opened my eyes, still half asleep. I stretched lazily before pushing myself up with my front paws, letting out a tiny, exhausted murmur as I tried to wake myself up. Everything still felt warm and cozy, making it difficult to leave the basket. I shook my head a few times, trying to chase away the lingering sleepiness after such a long nap. Once I finally gathered my senses, I looked around the temple hall. I'm alone. Christina wasn't anywhere to be seen. Then something else caught my attention. Huh. The pile of phoenix eggs beside my basket had grown much larger. My eyes widened in surprise. She must have come back while I was sleeping and quietly left more eggs without waking me. I looked down at my stomach. The heavy fullness from earlier was completely gone. Somehow, I'd already digested my entire meal. A grin slowly spread across my face. Well, since my tummy was empty again. Would it really hurt to eat just one more of those delicious phoenix eggs? I quickly convinced myself that eating just one more delicious egg couldn't possibly hurt me. This wasn't gluttony, no, it was an important part of absorbing more fire magic. At least, that's what I kept telling myself to silence my guilty conscience. With determination, I climbed on top of the hard crimson egg that I had saved for my last meal. Unlike the others, this one felt different. I leaned in close, studying every inch of its strange shell with growing curiosity. The more I examined it, the more certain I became that something extraordinary was sleeping inside this mysterious phoenix egg. Sooner or later, I would have to deal with it anyway. Since no one was around to stop me, this was the perfect opportunity. I took a deep breath and slowly gathered every bit of dark energy I could control into my tiny paw. My mana surged wildly, concentrating into a single point until the pressure became almost unbearable. If one punch couldn't crack this shell, then nothing would. Here goes. I unleashed my strongest punch, flooding it with dark energy as my tiny fist slammed directly into the crimson egg. Boom! A violent shockwave exploded across the room, sending dust and debris flying everywhere. The impact echoed through the chamber, powerful enough to shake the surroundings. I eagerly stared at the egg, expecting to see shattered pieces scattered across the floor. Instead, nothing. Not a single crack. Not even the tiniest scratch. You're kidding me. I blinked several times, completely frozen. I had hit it with everything I had, yet the phoenix egg looked as flawless as ever. Meanwhile, my poor little paw throbbed with pain. Ow ow. I hopped backward while rubbing my aching paw, grumbling to myself. This was supposed to be nothing more than a simple baked egg. Why was it tougher than a mountain? After thinking for a moment, I let out a long sigh. Fine. I'll use my full power, just this once. My body slowly lifted off the ground as an overwhelming amount of magical energy erupted from within me. Dark mana swirled around my tiny body like a raging storm, making the entire room tremble. The air itself grew heavy under the pressure. Then, behind me, the enormous spirit of my original form began to appear. Its terrifying presence towered over everything, radiating overwhelming power that made the surroundings shake uncontrollably. Even I could feel the incredible energy gathering for this final attack. I poured every last drop of mana into a single point. This ends now. A gigantic beam of concentrated dark energy erupted from my tiny body, roaring forward like a dragon's wrath as it slammed directly into the phoenix egg. Boom! The explosion shook the entire chamber. When the light finally disappeared, my strength vanished with it. I collapsed onto the floor, completely exhausted, barely able to keep my eyes open. Did it work? I forced myself to look toward the egg. Then my eyes widened. Tiny cracks had finally begun spreading across the crimson shell. Ha! I did it. A huge smile spread across my face as I proudly celebrated my victory. After everything I had thrown at it, the impossible shell had finally started to break. I couldn't help grinning to myself. So, I really am that strong. After all that effort, the impossible shell had finally cracked beneath my power. Feeling proud of myself, I eagerly stretched out my little paw, ready to enjoy the delicious reward that had cost me so much work to open. But just as I was about to take my first bite, something moved. Ha! I froze instantly. The cracked shell suddenly began shaking on its own. I quickly jumped backward, my heart racing as I stared at the strange sight. This wasn't what I had expected at all. The shell wasn't breaking because I was about to eat it. It was breaking from the inside. A soft chirp. A tiny, unbelievably gentle chirping sound echoed through the room. My confident smile vanished, replaced by complete confusion. Wait, what? The shell slowly split apart, piece by piece, until something incredibly small peeked out from inside. A tiny white bird. It had the chubbiest little cheeks I had ever seen, fluffy white feathers, and sparkling innocent eyes filled with curiosity. It slowly climbed out of the broken phoenix egg before looking directly into my eyes. I just stood there, completely speechless. The little bird tilted its head before letting out another cheerful little chirp, as if it had just met its best friend. Chirp. What? My brain completely stopped working. There was supposed to be food inside this egg. A delicious, perfectly baked phoenix egg. So why? Why was there a living bird staring at me? I was sure this thing was cooked. None of this made any sense. As I continued staring at the tiny hatchling, I suddenly felt something that made every instinct in my body scream. A familiar magical vibration. My eyes narrowed as I carefully sensed the energy flowing from the little bird's tiny body. At first, I only noticed the warm aura of fire magic. But then, my pupils shrank. No way. Mixed within the bird's fiery mana was my own. I could unmistakably feel traces of the very same dark magical energy I had poured into my attack. A chill ran through my entire body. Don't tell me. The truth hit me all at once. The phoenix egg hadn't resisted my attack. It had absorbed it. Every last bit of the overwhelming power I unleashed, every ounce of my dark mana, had been completely devoured by the egg. And instead of breaking it, my attack had given it exactly what it needed to hatch. You've got to be kidding me. The tiny bird happily chirped again, completely unaware that my strongest attack hadn't created my dinner. It had created a new life. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Thanks.